Lauren Stevens, welcome. I am calling you because we just saw Team TIBCO-Silicon Valley Bank, and you in particular had a fantastic go at the very first virtual Tour de France. The first two stages just happened. Tell me how TIBCO's doing.
Yeah, TIBCO's really taken on this virtual racing and taking it seriously, but also having fun with it. You know, it's a way for us to connect with each other. While we're racing, we're on Discord, an app where we can like talk to each other while we're racing. So it's been a fun way to like stay connected to each other.
Now we saw. Let's start with stage two because you're the big story there. You won. It was a pretty hectic run into the line. This like final, I don't know, 10K of racing or so over the Epic KOM on Zwift. It was pretty much as dynamic as a real life bike race. Tell me about that. Was there any team tactic going on over this big climb and on this descent? Because we saw TIBCO kind of all over the place in this race.
Yeah, so we knew Radio Tower was going to be the decisive moment for the race. So it's right after Epic. So you go up this Epic KOM, and our team tactic there was for Kristen and I to stay with the front, but try to save as much energy as possible. And we were leaving Sarah to handle any of those climber attacks. And luckily it was pretty calm actually up Epic, because I think everyone knew what was going to happen when we got to Radio Tower. And then when we get to Radio Tower, I mean, yeah, it looked like we're all over the place, because that's what Radio Tower is. It's an all-out effort, and you see where you're at when you get to the top.
Now, I've ridden the Epic KOM and Radio Tower plenty of times on Zwift, and it's miserable just going at a pace that I select. What is it like racing on that? Does it compare to anything you've done in real world races?
You know, I keep saying Zwift, it's easier to get good at it when you kind of separate it from the real world. And it is a video game, and it is its own discipline. So comparing it to something in the real world, it is difficult.
Now, that's really interesting, because we have seen you do well on Zwift before. I think it was maybe stage 3 of the Zwift Tour for All. Do you consider yourself pretty practiced at this new discipline of virtual racing?
I definitely consider myself pretty practiced at the virtual racing. I actually took over I'm number 1 female on Zwift right now. So I just got that yesterday. So I definitely have been spending a lot of time and doing my homework to get good at Zwift.
So has this been a concerted part of your just 2020 defunct, not really knowing when we're racing again season? Have you been using Zwift to keep the fitness up?
Yeah, I've been using Zwift to keep the fitness up, and it's also like a great platform for our sponsors. I mean, we've got our Cannondale bikes in the game. We're on our Shimano wheels. We have a Wednesday team ride that's open to the public. And so, yeah, it's been a way for me personally to like stay fit and have some fun, but it's also been a great outlet to keep our sponsors' names out there.
Okay, so let's get back to stage 2. Coming down from that descent, we saw Kristen Faulkner. She had an amazing solo bridge up to the leading 3. Then you were in the group behind. There was a big catch with about 4 kilometers to go, and 3 TIBCO riders in this front group going to the line. How did you win it?
Yeah. So from that point on, when we caught back up, I knew I had the most experience, and also in real life, I feel like I was the best sprinter out of that group. So from that point on, I was just staying at the front, focusing on keeping my speed high, and trying to save as much energy and my sprint as late as possible. Probably 500 meters out from the line, I was only going 100 watts and just staying on the wheels. And then I think around 400, the other girls started to open up their sprint, and I just lifted to stay on the wheels and was able to come around.
I keep just wanting to ask, and you already said it's nothing like real life racing, but are you taking into consideration different dynamics when doing a sprint on Zwift? Because I always think like you can't move the bicycle side to side. Is it better to go earlier, or is it just the same thing? The drafting is the same, and you just got to wait until, the final like 10 seconds or so.
Right. So it kind of depends on the grade, but yeah, it's waiting as long as possible, and you want to be the last one to open up your sprint. But the other hard part about Zwift is like you can't feel your other competitors. You can't feel like when they're about to go or when they're about to fade. You know, in real life, when you're sprinting, you can tell when that person in front of you is fading, and now it's time to like jump around them. But you don't have that on Zwift. Yeah, that's one of the main dynamics that's missing, and that's one reason I say you just have to separate it. Like, yeah, some of the tactics stay the same, and there's the same like foundation, but the mental side of it's completely different.
Now, let's talk about stage one. And specifically, I want to talk about your teammate, Kristen Faulkner, because we got to know all of y'all earlier this season at your training camp. There is a film that's actually just about to be released on FloBikes, so stay tuned for that with Team TIBCO. But Kristen Faulkner, she is very, very new to cycling, and she's kind of dominated these first two stages. Is this a surprise?
No, I mean, Kristen's incredibly strong, and, you know, she does her homework before the races, and, you know, she's taking these seriously. And yeah, I'm not surprised.
What do you think we're going to see of her in the real world when we get to start racing again? Do you think that this success that Kristen is having in virtual racing is going to transfer pretty easily into real world professional cycling, because she still is quite new at this?
Yeah, you know, she's still quite new, but I think it's definitely going to give her some confidence that is sometimes hard to get. And to start off with that and her strength, I think is really going to help her excel.
Yeah, I think that beating a world champion in the first stage of the Tour de France, whether or not it's virtual, should be a confidence booster. So very cool. Congratulations, number one Zwift ranked women rider and stage two winner of the virtual Tour de France. Let's, before I let you off, I want to talk a little bit about what the rest of the 2020 season is looking like for you and your team. What can you tell us about these moves to get back to Europe, get back to real life racing?
Yeah, we're hoping to get the team over to race Strade Bianche to Europe, but our focus also is just getting ourselves to Europe so that we can get back to the racing. There's going to be very limited racing in America, you know, in these next few months. And I think if we can get over to Europe, we'll have the assurance that we'll get to get some racing under our belt this season.
Are there any challenges that the women's peloton is facing in particular? You know, I'm thinking that it seems like there has been more of a priority than usual to get the men's season rebooted. Do you feel like there are opportunities for the women coming forward?
Yeah, I mean, you know, the focus has definitely been a lot on the men of getting their season started, and, you know, the women, we tend to follow just behind them. And, you know, this is a whole new experience for everyone, and everyone's just trying to do the best that they can do. And, you know, if they get the men sorted out and then we have to follow, that's how it is, and that's all right.
Now, you mentioned just trying to get to Europe. A lot of the men who have been in the World Tour peloton for many years, they have residency in Europe. Is that the case for the women's peloton, or is there an added level of complexity for you know, someone like you to get over to Europe right now as travel restrictions are coming back into place?
So yeah, with the travel restrictions, it's definitely more difficult being on an American team because we don't have residency over in Europe. The Americans that are on European teams, most of them do have residency. Not all of them, but some of them have residency and are being able to get over there. You know, it was an unforeseen challenge. You know, before, it's never been a problem for us to not have residency. And now we're facing that challenge of getting ourselves back to Europe.
Well, Lauren, we wish you luck. We're going to be seeing you in the coming stages of the virtual Tour de France, at the very least in the coming 2 weekends. So we'll be watching. Good luck to Team TIBCO, who is leading it by a very significant margin going into weekend 2.